Hello everybody. So today is a little bit of a different kind of video. It's more of a confession about something that I'm not really proud of. I find it amazing how people can say they have no regrets in life. And I either think that they haven't lived long enough, or they're in denial. But no, I guess there are people out there that have done everything right and they literally have no regrets. I can't say the same for myself. I do have regrets, and this is a biggie for me. And that was when I got involved with a married woman. This happened to me in my early 30s, and no, I wasn't lonely and desperate. I'm so lonely. In fact, the dating scene for me was really picking up momentum at that time. But it was, how can I put it? It was love at first sight. It was definitely a powerful chemistry that occurred the moment I laid eyes on her. And I believe she had the same experience when she looked at me. It was like our eyes just kind of locked in for a few seconds, but that made all the difference in the world. Now, I didn't really get the chance to talk to her that evening. She was with a friend who lived in the place that I was staying at. It was a shared accommodation. But later on, the friend came up to me and said, let's call this girl that I had that eye contact with, let's call her Yvonne for the sake of privacy. She told me that Yvonne was really interested in me and would like to get together. And I thought, wow, this is fantastic. But, and there was a but, and this was the first warning sign that I should have taken heed to, but I didn't. And that was, she was married. The situation was, she was from Russia, and she wanted to get out of the country because after the collapse of the Soviet Union, there was a lot of chaos going on there. And she wanted a way out. So she married a Canadian Russian, a Canadian who had been here, who was Russian and had been here for a number of years. And so that's who she was living with right now. But the impression I got was that this was simply a marriage of convenience. I mean, maybe perhaps that's what I wanted to believe. So I arranged to get together with her for our first date. And we hit it off really well right from the beginning. Even though, she didn't speak a lot of English, we didn't need a lot of English because our body chemistry was on fire. And so that was the beginning of my involvement with a married woman. And it's not like you planned this, at least I certainly didn't. And prior to that, I had certain, guidelines, and getting involved with a married woman was definitely a big no-no. I never thought I would find myself in that situation. But as I got to know her a little bit better, and we were able to communicate. She did speak some English. The impression I got from her was that she married this much older man to get into the country, and she's staying with him now because she still has administrative stuff to work out with immigration still, and she didn't want to upset that and do anything to upset that situation and, find herself back in Russia again. So she had to stay with her husband until all the immigration stuff was settled. And, that made perfect sense. Of course, you don't want to, upset immigration. And then she went on, to talk about how he was very controlling and verbally abusive with her, and how awful it was to be living with him. And I believed this. I took this hook and liner and all. I just, because I had such powerful feelings for her, I heard exactly what I wanted to hear. And at this time now, I'm feeling like I'm a knight in shining armor to save the princess from the evil dragon that she's being kept captive with for a period of time. It's really absurd how your sense of reasoning completely changes. And, of course, by now we are also sexually involved. And this is what I find interesting about when you're involved with a married person. It's not a normal relationship. I couldn't take her to meet my family or, go out together with friends. So, if this was so right, then why couldn't we have that normal kind of relationship that most people have and be able to experience what most people eventually experience, and that's the mundane stuff in life? We couldn't have that. So for us, it was a matter of getting together maybe once or twice, maybe 3 times in a week, and it was always like this sneaky arrangement. I couldn't just go to the door of where she lived and and knock on it, and it was like we're doing all this stuff in secrecy. I had to meet her in secret places, and it just, and yet, I should have seen by then that there was something wrong with what was going on here. Like, wake up. And a good friend of mine, tried to warn me. He was a pretty laid-back guy. He didn't express his opinion too often, but when he did, it had impact. And he came up to me privately and he said, "Dave, I just want to let you know, what goes around comes around." And I'm thinking, no, this is different. This is not like your usual affair. This is completely different. I'm the knight in shining armor. Like, she's with a dragon beast and I'm going to save her. This is completely different. You're thinking of the other kinds of affairs. No, this is different. And you know what? Anybody who's in an affair thinks like that. You have your own logic. It's not 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4 anymore. It equals 5. And you can have a mathematician show you, no, 2 + 2 equals 4. I'll demonstrate it to you, and you'll find a way of denying that and being convinced that it equals 5. Black is white and right is wrong. I mean, everything just gets completely turned upside down. You're in your own little world, literally. It's a fantasy land. It's an illusion that you're playing out, and it can be quite deadly. And that's where I was at this point. I mean, this relationship was going on for a period of time now. I guess we were getting close to a year of being involved with each other. And again, the involvement was mostly around the bed. I mean, because that was really all we could do. Well, yeah, we went out to dinner occasionally, but again, we would go to places that we knew her husband or anybody he knew wouldn't be around. And so it was like this relationship was sexually oriented, basically. It was very passionate. And that's one thing about being in an affair. It is very passionate, like nothing else. And that's in itself is like a drug. And that, again, is because you can't have a normal relationship when you're in an affair. So you can't you don't have time to really get introduced to all the blemishes that every one of us have, and get into the realm of the mundane and see how your relationship stands up to that. I mean, that's the real test of any relationship, isn't it? The mundane. So yeah. And I'm just, going along in my happy way, thinking this is okay. I'm in my logic of adultery. Everything makes perfect sense. Until something major happened. So it was like somebody had poured a bucket of cold ice over my head while I was in a deep sleep and shocked me into reality. So what happened? Well, it was during the week time. She came over to my place. I skipped off from work, and we spent the whole day making romantic love. I mean, we had a lot of sex, let's just put it that way. And afterwards, we're just in each other's arms, sharing, opening up in ways that we never did before, connecting emotionally, and really feeling close to each other, saying things to each other that we never said before. And then in the midst of that bliss, she said, David, I have to tell you something. A few nights ago, I slept with my husband. And at the time, I'm so caught up in this narcotic of romantic bliss that I just said that's okay. Things happen. I was very understanding. It was, no problem. And then later on, of course, she had to go back to where she lived. And I was still in my bliss. And for the rest of that evening, I was pretty much in my bliss until later on in the evening. And then I started thinking, hold up. Whoa. Back up there, Billy. She just told you that she slept with your husband. You were under the impression all this time that she was only in a relationship of convenience and that there was nothing going on there. And but then I went to sleep. I didn't give it too much thought that night. But then the next day when I woke up, that's when the bucket of water got poured on my head, and I suddenly could see things for what they really were and realized that I had been suckered, that I'm basically in a relationship with a married woman who is also in a relationship with her husband. She's cheating on me with her husband. And that, that's the reality, okay? Don't ever believe, if you're involved with a married person, don't believe for one moment that they're not sleeping with their spouses. They'll try to portray them as being, if you're a woman sleeping with a husband, that husband will try to convince you that his wife is an unreasonable bitch. She's crazy. They don't even have sex anymore. Don't believe a word of it. Trust me on this one. There's no way that they could stay in that relationship and keep this extra relationship undercover without having to sleep with them. I mean, they have to, because otherwise the other person's going to be suspicious. You don't be in a marriage and not be intimately involved. I mean, unless there's something else going on. And so that was when I realized that I had been taken for a total fool. And so I had to think, okay, what am I going to do now? I've been in this relationship for, I guess at that point it was a good year. And I can't continue this on. There's no way. I have to give her an ultimatum. And that's what I did. The next time I got together with her, I said, look, this is the deal. You're with me or you're with him, but I can't do this anymore. And she went on about the story with immigration and all that nonsense. And so that was it. I ended it there. It was over. It was hard. Believe me, I was in pain. I mean, I was heartbroken because I loved her on some weird kind of level. At least I thought I did. Believe me, it wasn't true love because, again, our relationship was never really tested. It was an affair, and you cannot know true love in an affair, period. You can be very passionate. You can have a lot of emotions going on, but you don't know true love. Anyways, so yeah, for the first couple of months it was tough, but by the third month of having no contact with her at all, I was starting to feel good about myself and, ready to start dating again, basically. And then I got a phone call. It was her. She had left her husband and she wanted to move in with me. She had no place to live. She just left. So what was I to do? I had been with Yvonne for about a year, and I finally gave her the ultimatum, and she leaves her husband. She's got nowhere else to go. I felt obligated to let her in, even though I was ready to move on. But I thought, you know what? I have strong feelings here. Let's give this a fair try. We've come this far. Let's see if this can work out. So she moves in with me, and almost immediately problems arise. I mean, the blemishes that we didn't see in each other while we were in the affair came to the surface, and neither one of us liked what we saw. We were always fighting, basically, and if we weren't fighting, we were having sex, and that was basically what our relationship was about. It was very passionate, it was very volatile, but it was not sustainable. And she talked about her husband being very controlling over her, but she was the one that was very controlling. I was the one who I felt like that I couldn't express myself. I had to tippy-toe around her, and I was afraid to say boo without pissing her off. I was the one who was being completely controlled here, and it got to the point where I was miserable. I hated life itself. I wanted to die almost. I mean, but anyhow, I finally said, okay, look, let's, find you a place, an apartment of your own, and let's try starting off on a whole new footing here where we are dating and getting to know each other like what we should have done in the beginning. And she agreed, and she found a place, and initially that's what we did. We were still seeing each other, but then after a while, and this wasn't very long afterwards, she started, I would call her place and wouldn't get an answer. And she was being evasive, not wanting to get together as much. And things were going on. She was avoiding me, basically. And so, and at this point, my feelings had sort of gotten, whatever hold she had on me before came back. And so I was emotionally invested again. And I wanted to know what was going on. So one morning I went to her house unexpectedly. She thought I was at work. And I knock on the door, and a man answers the door. Apparently it was a friend of hers from Russia that had come over and was staying with her. She only had one bedroom, and it seemed pretty clear that he was not sleeping on the couch. So basically, to make a long story short, she dumped me after everything was said and done. And I was hurt. And for the first month, you go through your little self-pity party there. And then, I finally was able to move on with my life. And I learned from that. I realized that I would never, at that point I said to myself, never again will I make this mistake and get involved with a married woman, no matter what the circumstances are. So I got over it. I moved on with my life. I started dating, meeting new people, having a great time. And then one day I would eventually meet my wife-to-be, who I would end up being married with for 13 years. And during that time, we had 2 beautiful children together. And for most of our marriage, we were happy, like really happy. And most people who saw us would never in a million years thought that we would ever break up. But after 13 years, I got hit with a doozer. I was not expecting it. And but it happened. And before I knew it, I was signing those divorce papers. And that was when it really, the words of wisdom from my old buddy came back to haunt me. What goes around comes around. Thank you, karma. Okay, karma. Are we even now? Are we good? I can get on with my life. I don't have to